Morning.
Hello.
Good, and yourself?
Good.
Hi there.
Hey, how are you?
You want to come out? Where's the break room for you?
Go sign in.
Sir, if you want to give him the sign-in sheet, please. Thank you.
Sharon. Sharon, okay. Oh. Here you go, sir. Here you go.
If you don't mind.
Set?
Yep. good.
All right. Call this meeting to order. It is 6 o'clock. Let's go in. For one, we'll do introductions. I'm Alderman Scott Lennon, the Chair of the Budget and Finance Committee.
Ben Daish, Finance Director.
Alderman Richard Regis, third ward alderman, member of the committee.
Jim Wiggle, second ward alderman.
Alderman Reese, 6th Ward, visiting.
Steve Taylor, third ward resident.
Sharon Range, project analyst.
Joe Fitzgerald, Project Manager.
Joe Carmichael, 8th ward alderman.
Ruth Seattle Green, City Administrator.
Great. Let's go into public comment. Does anybody have any public comments?
Thank you. My name is Steve Taylor. I'm at 27th Kenilworth, a third ward resident. Today's agenda includes the approach to budget process for fiscal year 2024 and a discussion on Aldermanic expense accounts. I want to address these two topics in my statement today. Thank you for having me today. Regarding the approach to the budget process of 2024, the residents of Berwyn would like to see more engagement from council members. There was a general dissatisfaction about how the city approached the use of ARPA funds. That taxpayer money for COVID relief was used extensively to fund public works and department building expansions. While those do fall in the guidelines of spending for ARPA, we felt as though the city snubbed residents with COVID relief. What I'm asking for is leaders of the city to take a pragmatic approach and improve constituent engagement with the budget, but still deliver a feasible budget on time. My personal suggestion is to consider a survey to understand the priorities of constituents and compare it to the priorities of departments when making decisions. And regarding the Aldermanic expense accounts, which have recently been increased to $7,500, the ordinance reads, for purposes of seeking reimbursement, the city clerk and each council member is entitled to submit receipts for spending related to executing his or her official duties and obligations, and reimbursement of expenses shall be granted not to exceed $7,500 per fiscal year. While this can be interpreted differently by various council members, I think we can all agree that a set of guidelines to align may be necessary to avoid abuse or waste. Alderman Leisure publicly stated that this account is intended to do the most good for the community with the little amount of money available to each alderman. There was an instance when Alderman Leisure bought flags and mounting equipment to decorate the Depot District with American flags. Should that have been funded by Public Works? Was that the best use of money for the greatest good? Alderman Pavone led the first participatory budget activity in Berwyn to lead the community of his constituents to use that expense account to fund community projects. Alderman Lennon is chair of the Budget and Finance Committee and does not inspire fiduciary duty. In fact, I feel like he inspires the opposite by leading with bad example. He uses taxpayer-funded expense account to pay for his membership dues to the PDC, membership dues to the Friends of the Library, and to buy sponsorships. Sponsorships are especially problematic because they can be considered advertising or campaigning. But he is not alone in that practice because all other council members have also done it to various degrees of total spent. Interestingly enough, each year Alderman's expense account was not fully spent, yet it was increased by $3,000. I am not here asking to take away money from churches, school, or softball teams, but giving your name to events seems improper and unethical. The city of Chicago clearly defined expense accounts allowances in their ordinance, and that should be a waypoint for best practices. With a new total of $60,000 total budgeted for the Alderman's expense accounts, I encourage leaders to develop smart, ethical, and transparent guidelines for Aldermanic expense accounts. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opening comments?
I'd like to say something,
Yep.
Alderman. and it's not a rebuttal to Mr. Taylor's comments, but this is a reoccurring conversation that has been taking place. And I think it derives specifically from a certain alderman's practice with his expense account. But I would just like to share that the scrutiny of our expense account, I'm not offended by that, but I would like to add that I think if you're going to scrutinize expense accounts, then let's look at it holistically. For the last 6 years, and I'm sure many of us aldermen can speak to this point, I have paid for my own ink, my own laptop, my own internet access at home, my own printing, my own paper, my own cell phone, my own office space, and many other things that I have contributed selflessly to be an alderman. And I think my expense account, even though I can use it for that, because as you mentioned, it's murky of what its use is. So I have done that selflessly. And my contributions to my ward have been, I use them to my discretion. So if I want to host a Halloween party, or the pop-ups where I've given refreshments, or donated to different organizations, no matter if it's religious, nonprofit, for-profit, if they are serving the community to some level, I feel like I think my contribution to that should be at my discretion, because they are serving Berwyn communities. I don't give to Lions, I don't give to Brookfield, I don't give to anyone unless that organization is in Berwyn and serving Berwyn. Comparing us to Chicago, those aldermen have $1 million budget. So to ask for residential and community engagement and feedback, I think is duly respected and should be done. I have a first time ever $7,500 expense account that I championed for that increase, because $4,500 will not do anything in my ward. I would have to charge my residents to be part of anything that I plan in my community, and I think that's unfair. Every event I have hosted, my constituents or any constituent that decides to participate, it is free to them. I don't charge them for anything. Any of the refreshments to attend, it is all paid by the expense account. So I don't mind you scrutinizing that, but then look at it holistically. I get paid $10,000 to do this job, and I don't complain about that. I do it wholeheartedly and very transparent. So if we want to talk about anything, let's talk about how we aren't even getting paid minimum wage. There's high schoolers right now that are making more money than I am to do this role. So I thank you for coming here, and I appreciate your public comments, and I appreciate that you are trying to rally other people to get behind this, but please look at it in its entirety. That's all I ask. I don't have a problem sharing. I mean, I've been FOIA'd and everything, and that's quite all right. I have nothing to hide about how I spend my expense account. But I think to sit here and judge how we spend that money based on one alderman's work is very unfair.
Thank you for the feedback, and
I
I'm really
just-
glad that you were
just
able
wanna say
to
that.
activate and be part of the discussion that should be had, and it should be holistic, and everyone at the table should talk about it, so I'm glad you're engaged in it. And
Yeah, I don't have staff, I don't have office space, I don't even have funds to do that. So just wanted to share that with you. This conversation's been ongoing, I keep hearing it, those buzzwords keep happening, and I apologize, Alderman, that I'm stealing
No, that's fine.
your meeting,
No, it's
but I couldn't take it anymore, I'm
It's-
sorry, I
it's-
apologize.
It's needed to be said, so.
So, and it's, honestly, I'm not,
Yeah,
it's not a rebuttal.
I think the-
I just want you to be able to see the full spectrum of an alderman's position.
yeah, I think we've come, like, we agree that if there's guidelines in place, it could keep things on the road, and, there will be less probably scrutiny and concern out there, and say like, these are appropriate expenses, these are probably not. You know, and understood that, you know, Chicago is $1 million budget, and they have to pay for their own offices, and, they can do snow removal, and.
They have staff.
They have staff, and that all comes out of the budget. But at the same time, it also says, you cannot do the following things with your money. Advertise, hire, family members. There are certain things you can and cannot do. And so that kind of really makes it clear what's appropriate and what's not to be using taxpayer funded. But yes, this is a very frank conversation, and thank you for,
Appreciate it.
for responding to me.
So I'll add one thing, is if you're gonna scrutinize and look at expense accounts for aldermen, people should go to all aldermen and look at all their expense accounts to see what they expense. We go, we expense things, we send it to finance, they approve it, they provide us the money back. We're not doing anything that we're not supposed to do. We do not have participatory budgets in Berwyn. Maybe Chicago does, maybe other communities do. That's different. If somebody's gonna give us $20,000 to reach out to the community, to donate or put programs together, that's fine. We get $7,500, we get $10,000 a year in our annual salary. We don't get 135 like Alderman Chicago. We don't have a staff of 10, and we don't get a $1.5 million budget for our ward. So it's a big difference to compare us to what you see in Chicago versus what we do here. My paycheck is $216 every 2 weeks. And we don't do it for the money. So to criticize a sponsorship, when we go to sponsor an event at Irving, they say, will you sponsor? Yes. They ask for our logo and they put it up there. We don't push the logo, they ask us. So I think we've buried that. And do we have any other comments? Thank you. Okay, so now let's move on to our approach for the budget process this year. So Ben, do you want to talk a little bit about this year? We've changed things a little bit more, and I would thank our team here for putting this together and to really look at that. We've been really, I know a lot of meetings have been happening behind the scenes, preparing for this day, and then preparing as we move forward.
Thank you, Chairman Lennon. Yes, indeed, we have taken the initiative to present a budget to City Council for approval. Even though the county's requirement is to have that budget approved by March 30th of the budget year, we've taken the initiative to have the budget in place before the fiscal year is started. Our project manager and project coordinator, Joe Fitzgerald and Cheryl DeGrange, have been helping our committee in order to make that happen, along with the efforts of City Administrator Sienna Green and the rest of our staff. So the process has started significantly earlier than in recent years past, and that's where we're at today. Any further, as a result, also, our project manager has drafted, with the input of department heads and city administration, our budget manual, as well as constructed a timeline for us to be able to work toward.
So our approach this year is kind of the kickoff meeting, which is today, and then a budget review analysis. That's what the departments, like I said, they've already been meeting with the departments so far, talking about it probably in the last 60 days, about where we ended last year, where we're going this year. That process is going. And then we will then start scheduling budget meetings with the top departments, such as police, fire, public works, and some of the others. With that, then, we go to the collaborative discussions that the key departments will get deeper into their understanding of what their needs are, what they put to the side last year, what they are doing moving forward. A lot of times, if we're looking at getting say it's a new fire engine or whatever, we're putting so much a year in that, so we can purchase that or lease that down the road. So what's the long-term goal for these departments on the bigger level items? You know, when it comes to body cams and things that we've talked about for many years, how are we gonna get that money, where it's coming from, and what do we need to do as we move forward? We got a lot of state mandates, We're lucky enough to get some federal money, some state money in some of the projects we do, especially in public works and places like that, that will help us when it comes to our internal budget, but we're always looking for grants and reaching out to, federal, state, government to assist us with some of the projects that we have moving forward. And then the budget approval process. So that's kind of where we are with that. Joe, do you have anything to add? So now we have our timeline. So our timeline is basically, internal meetings have been going on since August 14th they'll go through September 20th. Budget and Finance Committee kickoff, that's today. Capital Plan Council approval, September 26th. Are we still in target with that? Budget and Finance Committee meetings. So we as a committee need to discuss what the best days are for us. I know 6 o'clock is a start time for you, Alderman Carmichael. But what days are good for us so we can start looking at the calendar moving forward? If it's Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, whatever it may be, what are good days for? I'm open, I can be flexible with this.
Yeah, I'm pretty
You're
open,
You're
pretty
open?
open too, yeah.
Okay. Alderman Leah?
Yes.
You're open to, okay. So then we can go back and forth and try to schedule some dates that will work for us as we move forward. It's probably gonna be, it'll probably start later in the month. As the next couple of weeks, we have a lot of things going on and they're still meeting with department heads. So what we can do that is then secure time with police, fire, public works, and then we'll see the other different departments in there as well. And then we're looking at,
Alderman Lennon, can I
Yes.
ask a question, please? So I know that you said the meetings are with, for, obviously, of our bigger departments.
Yes.
With majority of the staff. Are there meetings held with like the collections office, or does that fall under?
That falls under
Vendor
our
Ben's
internal,
purview?
Yeah.
internal
Okay.
meetings.
And then what about the clerk's office? Do they just have their own, or?
they have their own, but they go with, they talk about their budget.
So
as
we've
well.
been meeting internally and we've started and every single department gets met with.
Okay,
Anyone who has a budget or the budget, we meet with them. We go over initially just to see where they're going. If they have any new initiatives, any new projects that we need to take into consideration, any changes in staffing within the departments. So after we look at that, he brings forth, and before the meetings, he shows them where they have been up to now with their finances for the year. Because right now, we've only done through the end of June or July, where we have those numbers, provide that. We see if we're on target, which areas are high, which areas are low. Just talking about what any big plans are. And one of the reasons, and this year, if you notice, one of the departments that we're gonna be meeting with is IT. A lot has gone on over the past decade, just in where governments are and the dependency that we have on IT, technology, software. Before everything was done, you purchased the separate programs, the software, it'd be per user, and you'd have to do your updates every now and then, but you would own that. Now everything is cloud-based. Almost every department now depends hugely, a large part of it on IT, and right now we're gonna change it so our IT department has more say and control over, just to make sure that everything works and is able to work with our networks. They know where things are going. That way they're gonna be taking over a larger part of our budget, and we're gonna be taking more from different departments, from the clerk, every single department that has any IT needs. We're gonna be pushing a lot of their software and those expenses to IT, because they are the best. They know what's out there, they know the technology that we have, they know what will work, won't work. They have better scrutiny over just contracts for updates every year. So that's why we're gonna be meeting with them this year where we haven't, and you'll see a change in the budget. So right now, our percentage that we have for expenses for IT is very low. Benjamin's been working with the GFOA, just doing questionnaires to see where other communities are size, the percentage they spend on IT compared to us, where we need to go. But that's gonna be one of the big changes that you're gonna see this year, is we're gonna try to boost our IT budget, take, decision-making for software, computers, anything from the separate departments, who that's not their professional expertise, move it to the experts, and you'll see that change. So that's why we're gonna meet with them this year, and when we meet with Jim Frank, our IT director, he'll be able to answer more questions that you might have related to that.
So what we'll do is really right sizing what really should be under IT versus say there's something in police that really should go over to IT, or vice versa.
And-
So
So-
is Ben and you, or who's we are meeting with
Oh,
the different departments?
So we've been, Ben,
Yes, we
he's
have
got
actually.
staff from
we-
finance,
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
we-
myself, Joe Fitzgerald and Sharon, have also been working together with all the departments as we're trying to make these changes this year.
Okay, gotcha.
So we'll put all that information together, set up the meetings for the bigger departments to come meet with you. And that way you can ask them those questions. The other ones are, the budgets really don't change too much, you know.
Yeah.
We still have our vehicle sticker sales that from one year to the next, no big changes there, you know. But the big changes this year you're gonna see are with IT. For instance, a lot of those, projects that are going on right now, the whole CAD system's being updated over at the police department, their, record management system, that's all being changed. IT has been integral with that from the very beginning as they were meeting with the vendors, just so everything becomes integrated and it's looked at in a holistic view, rather than just micromanaging little things, and then all of a sudden, that system doesn't work with this one, the software, you know, that way we can see how that all works together.
Does that mean IT is gonna be doing, the projects like, what the police did for the body cams, where they did the research for months?
They've been involved since the very beginning of those,
Okay.
so
But
any.
they're gonna take that on like more fully, or what?
I think it's just the back, it's really the back.
It's the back end, so any of the contracts that they were looking at doing,
Okay.
just making sure that any of those software systems, just
Got it.
all the updates happen throughout the years, they'll be taking a look at that.
Got it.
That way they can plan with the budgeting of these projects with
But
those
it's not like
softwares.
IT is now gonna be doing like vetting for.
No, they're just
No.
part of the
Public
team.
Works?
No, they're just part of the team because
Okay.
they know the IT portion of it.
Mhm.
And so we try to get all the players involved, that way all of a sudden there's not a surprise at the end. Oh shoot, we should have involved this person because all of a sudden now we have this hiccup.
Right.
As long as we get all the key players at the very beginning, looking at it from the very beginning with the decisions that are made, that way no one's taken off guard. And then all of a sudden we have to change something that'll cost us money at the end.
Got it.
And really important too is IT has done a great job in being one step ahead of everybody else as far as IT cybersecurity. We want to make sure that all these new software initiatives and programs that IT has the resources they need to be able to keep that tightened up.
Good.
Yep.
Thank you.
So the next one is the tax levy, that'll be November, presentation to the council November 14th. Budget, final budget and finance committee meeting, reviewing draft budget, November 21st. It should be around that time. And then we have public hearing, budget presentation at council on the 12th. Vote on the final budget at council December 26th, so we can get that to the council. So that's that. One of the things this year is, it's much larger, but here's a snapshot of it, is a city budget manual draft. And this is kind of the timeline of what we're following as we're going through the budgets with the departments and going through it to make sure that we have this communication and meetings with them so we can keep that on the right direction. Joe, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because this one's new. The binder is new this year versus we didn't really have a binder in the past. So I think it's a good topic we can talk about this year.
Yeah, well, thanks for the time. We did put this together based on like input that was from the public, from the legislation, and from the executive branch, along with some of the department heads. In the past, there was just a lot of nebulous talk about who's doing what, and what's the role, and what are the kind of constraints in the process of what's going along the lines. Doing a budget for a municipality our size is rather complicated. There's a lot of nuances, so these are guidelines and a roadmap based off of GFOA standards, departments and municipalities that are comparable to ours, and based off of federal monies that we have coming in. So it's not end all be all, it's a roadmap, but I think it's gonna help keep everything in line, based off of what Director Daish's vision of getting everything back in alignment with timing along the way through this fiscal year.
Keeps us on a timeline and keeps us organized as well, and if we fall behind, then we can look at that and say, we gotta move on this or whatever. So that's it. So now, we just have to set up a timeline, and I will email everybody on some dates so we can get our timeline ready for later in the month, that we can do our initial meetings with the different departments. And then we'll have the other meeting with, basically, the finance committee on the departments that we did not meet with, but they met with the team here. Next one we kind of talked about is our Aldermanic expense account, and we do appreciate input on that, and we will review to make sure our ordinance is correct when it comes to what we do send in for expenses. But once again, ours are all approved by finance. There's nothing that we're expensing that we have not been allowed to expense in the last how many years. So we will look at that moving forward and see if there's anything we have to kind of go through and change, and we go from there. Anybody have any input on that, Alderman-wise?
Are you gonna be discussing the amount as well, or just more around the parameters of what's acceptable?
I think parameters of what's acceptable.
Okay.
The amount is, we have our 7,500, we can use it to where we wanna, for meetings and snacks or what have you. If we wanna do items in our, things in our ward, events in our ward or what have you. We don't, like you said, we don't charge our gas. I think in the past, Alderman might have had a gas card, I'm not sure. We've never had a gas card. We have a lot of expenses that come out of our personal money that do not come out of the city. So, we just gotta go from there.
Okay.
Any other input?
I just wanted, so we as aldermen speak to our people all the time. We know what they want, we use our expense account for the things that is best for what the ward people really want. So that's how we always do it.
One of the key things that I'm not gonna go purchase something that I can get from the city. So if we're doing a ward cleanup, I'm gonna get bags from Public Works, they have boxes of them. If we need rakes, I'm gonna go there and say, hey, I'm doing a ward cleanup, can I get a bunch of rakes or brooms or whatever? If we can get things from the city that are available that we don't have to take out of our expense account, that's where we should really focus on. And there are some things in the city that they do have, even when it comes to printing, for printing flyers going door to door about flooding or something, we could print them here, drop them off, instead of us using our personal expense account for that. We have copiers here, things like that. But we don't have a city office with city staff. So we do have to rely on the city staff to help us, or some of the equipment they have here. Okay, so the next one was public hearing dates.
I think one of those was already in here in our timeline.
Yep.
So the public hearing December 12th.
So that's gonna be December 12th, like we normally do.
Yeah, normally the public hearing date, and again, these are anticipated dates. However, in years past, the public hearing has been on the same date as actually a budget passage.
Yep.
Now,
So did you want to move that then?
Yeah.
So we
to
could
December
change that,
26th?
so
Yeah.
that, this is not set in stone, that could be changed if we're
Yeah.
gonna do a public hearing and then have it approved on the next,
or that very day.
either that day or,
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would, once again, anything here in the next several months, if you can't make the meeting, reach out. If you have any questions about some of the things that are gonna be on the budget, or we have some, there's a lot of, we've got a lot of more expenses, and we do have more expenses in the police. We have more expenses in, fire as well, and public works, so we really have to look at that. I mean, my issue all the time was we don't give enough money sometimes to public works so we can resurface our streets and roads. We need to look at that. That's something that Bob Schiller can look at as we move forward to make sure, we have crumbling infrastructure in the city. But we have been very fortunate to get a lot of grants from the state and federal government around the city. We continue to try to get those grants. It's gonna help us that we're not gonna have to go to the taxpayers. So even when it comes to the ARPA money, money that's going to CERMAC, going to Ogden, and to some of the infrastructure that we're doing as well, so.
And just on that public hearing, if we could keep it to a public hearing, like in a session before the final vote, I do like having a public hearing and then having a little bit of time to digest that and then voting on it.
So you would prefer it on December 12th?
That would be great,
Okay.
if we can hold to that.
Yeah. And like I say, along the way, if you have questions and there's something in the public works budget, we'll have our meeting with them, but if you see it afterwards, make a separate call, just see what's going on, because there is a lot of moving parts when it comes to this budget. Okay. Any new business we need to discuss?
I just have one question,
Yeah.
Alderman. So if, as suggested by Alderman Carmichael, if we keep it on December 12th for open comments, public hearing, how much of a margin do we have to even take into consideration anything that any of our constituents would recommend? Is there a margin at that point, or would we need it a little bit earlier?
I mean, I would think you need it, I think if you wanna get input from your constituents, there are concerns. I think if you could get them during this whole process, what do they, what do our constituents want? Our budget is pretty tight when it comes to what is salary, pension, and benefits. So what do we have around that we can spend on other things? I think there's a lot of information out there, some misinformation about how we spend our money. Not everybody's gonna be happy with how we spend our money, because, somebody wants their street done, but they can't get done this year, but it's gonna be in 2 years, or whatever it may be. But get that input from them, and we can kinda, hopefully by the time we do have those meetings, we kinda have an understanding of what somebody specifically talked to you personally about, called you on. The Facebook chatter, that's all the time, but I wanna hear directly from my constituents on what do you want? What do you see? How can I explain it to you, and kind of moving forward from there? Even with the depot project, there's a ton of information out there. It's a $31 million project, started 17, 18 years ago. It's 29 million or so with grants. Rest is coming out of different, if it's coming out of TIF or it's coming out of loans or things like that. That's the information that needs to get out to our residents so that they understand that this is really not your taxpayer money. It's not coming out of your taxes. We got grants for this, and we will continue to do that as well. So I think that's kind of the key thing.
Yeah, and just remind people that all of this is on our YouTube, so if people can't be here, they can watch and see what's happening, that every one of the meetings, we always publicly post them. So that way, just say, hey, we're gonna be covering police this night, we'll be covering fire department this night. Feel free, chime in, listen.
Yeah.
But I thought they weren't live streamed anymore.
These are live
No, they're
streamed.
live.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll be live streamed.
Yeah.
I think it's
All
really
these are
after.
live streamed.
After the meetings is always good to kind of get a feedback too, because a lot of people don't understand it.
Yeah.
Not that, some do, some don't, but there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to where the money comes from. I think a lot of times, it's really not a shell game with money. You can use draft forfeiture money for this, you can use this money for that. And I think that you guys know that because you live and breathe it every day. But it's not that we have just this open checkbook that we can buy, plants for people's backyards or just things like that. So we've upped our budget for public works for trees. We'll continue to focus on that too. So we have listened to the community, and we'll continue to do that as well. But we do have a lot of infrastructure projects going on right now, and we really need to focus on that as well, because in the long run, that's gonna help us, moving forward, that we're not gonna have crumbling, infrastructure and things like that. So.
And as we're taking the information from our department, these internal meetings, it allows us to prepare a draft for us to review as far as where the overall numbers are coming in, and that's gonna be a basis for decision-making as far as what resources to be allocated.
Sure, and we have one union contract, is it one union contract?
I think it's one.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we have that coming up. The other ones we did last year and early this year, so we're done there, but we have one this year. So that'll have to be done, so that'll that'll open up in 2024 if there's gonna be an increase there and what the increase will be and things like that. I know on the police side, we've had to upgrade as the records clerk in the past were different than records clerks moving forward, especially when it comes to body cams, redacting the FOIAs and things like that. So a lot of that's gonna change where maybe an employee could do this, but technically we have to upgrade, either train them, send them to school, train them, or, get somebody else that can do that work as well. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, I just need a motion to adjourn.
I made a motion to it. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all, appreciate it.
Yeah.
They have a mail, just toss or you throw it in the mail? So it could have got lost.
Like, the